Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be making this beautiful, crispy, fried, spicy pork. It's a Southwestern treat served over black beans with homemade tortilla chips. I'm your host, Stacy Williams, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Here we go. Alright, so we're going to start out here with about an 8-pound pork butt. I've removed it from the package, and we're going to go ahead and cut it up into cubes. Now, while we're cutting this into cubes, I'll go ahead and tell you this is an extremely versatile piece of meat. You can use it for so many things. Obviously, you can make pulled pork barbecue. I use it to make sausages of all kinds. Either breakfast sausage, Italian sausage, chorizo. I can use it to make pork tips. I can make pork steaks. So every time this goes on sale for a great price at the supermarket, I always grab a few and put them in the freezer. They're great to have on hand. So I'm actually, at this point, before I cut cubes, I'm taking the meat off of the bones all the way down to about a ½ inch all the way around the bone. I'm going to season that up and I'm going to smoke it. And that's going to be what gives me flavor in the black beans that we're going to use for this recipe, and for a few others. I'm going to put on this one some taco and fajita seasoning and let it smoke up with some hickory and pecan, and then we'll go ahead and make those black beans, and it'll give us that nice Southwest flavor that we're looking for. Now, once I've done that, we're going to chop up these tips. Now, of course, I'm only cooking for 2 people, so I'll have these tips for one meal, and I'll be able to use other tips for another meal, or possibly grind into sausages. I can always go ahead and put that into my fridge or freezer and keep them for another day. So let's get these things chopped up so we can get going. All right, so I've got my portion that I'm going to need for tonight's dinner, and we're going for a Southwest flavor. I'm going to go ahead and use lime juice as my binder to help hold the seasoning on. It's going to soak in, give it a little bit of flavor. The juice will help the muscle texture to break down a bit so we get it nice and tender, and it'll help hold on the seasoning. Now, I'm using Meat Church fajita seasoning this evening. You can use any of your favorite Southwest flavors. Taco seasoning would work. Just make sure that you've got salt, pepper, garlic, some kind of chili powder, maybe a little cumin, a little oregano, and you'll be able to get the kind of flavors that you're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and put on a little at a time, swirl this around, rub it in, and make sure that we're getting coated everywhere. Now, I set that aside in our refrigerator. Gonna let that soak in that flavor, let that salt penetrate a bit into the meat. While that's happening, go ahead and get the cast iron skillet with oil. I'm going about 1 inch deep on the oil. I'm not looking to deep fry, like totally submerged. Just doing this here on the stove top. And we're gonna go ahead and put in our meat now that we're up to about 375 degrees. I temped it out to make sure, because we have to be able to cook the meat. We want to cook it at around 350. As we put that cold meat into the grease, obviously it's going to pull the temperature of the grease down, and it has to warm back up. So I definitely want to use a medium-high heat to keep this oil keeping around that 350 range. All right, so I'm placing this in obviously carefully, because grease splash is really no fun, right? It gets up on your arm, your hand, wherever it may hit. Definitely not fun. So we're going to let these go for probably 4 to 5 minutes on one side. We're going to give them a flip and let them go another 4 to 5 minutes. Just to be sure, I do have my temperature probe here. I will grab one and check it before I pull them out, just to make sure that I've reached a minimum of 165 internal, because this is pork. Want to make sure that it's cooked to 165. All right, this first batch has hit 165 degrees. I'm gonna go ahead and pull these out, let them set on a paper towel to absorb the extra oil. Then we'll get a second batch loaded up. I didn't want to cook everything at once. I want to make sure that these have room to get the grease all around all the sides and not stick to one another. So we're cooking it into a couple of batches until we get them all done. All right, while the pork was cooking, I did take a few tortillas, cut them into quarters. These are flour tortillas I'm using. I didn't have any corn tortillas on hand, but you know, flour tortilla chips are actually pretty good too. So we're gonna go ahead and just drop those in the grease. It does not take long for these to cook. The big key here is either push them down to get them fully submerged or flip them over, make sure that both sides get nice and firm. We'll bring those out on a paper towel and sprinkle a little salt and pepper over them, and they're ready to go. All right, and with that, we're ready to plate things up. I'm going to pour black beans over about half of the plate, and that's going to be our bed for the pork tips to rest on. These black beans, I cooked them a few days ago with the pork that I smoked and let that flavor get in. I did not pull the pork and put them into the beans the way we would with our white beans or pinto beans that we might cook, because I knew I specifically wanted these beans to go with other dishes where there was going to be other meat. We actually pulled that pork off the bone and made quesadillas out of them. It was absolutely delicious. But here, like I said, we cooked these. They cooked for about 6 hours, just simmering down with getting that nice smoky flavor. They're soft and delicious and ready to go. So we get those on half the plate, because on the other half of the plate, we're going to go ahead and set up our tortillas. Now, technically, you know, you could just serve these with soft tortillas. You don't have to make chips. You could use store-bought chips, but there's just something about making the ones at home that just make them taste so much better, because you know that you did it. So we'll get those put onto both plates, and we'll get the pork arranged onto the bed of black beans. Then we're going to top it with salsa, diced green chilies, and some green onion, just for fun. All right, and there's our beautiful dish. This thing smells amazing. The taste was incredible. The pork is crispy on the outside. The fat is nicely rendered. And when you bite into it, it's melted in your mouth, juicy. Absolutely wonderful, full of spice, full of flavor, and just absolutely over the top as far as a nice little Tex-Mex Southwestern meal goes. I hope you enjoyed it. Join us next time. We're giving away a 5-piece cast iron lodge cookware set when we hit 1,000 subscribers. All you have to do is like a video and subscribe to the channel to be entered in the giveaway.